I'm Gwen Preston of Resource Maven. We're here at the Metals Investor Forum in Vancouver in late September. And I'm joined by Chris, who's from Integra Resources. And Integra has had, I was just thinking about it, an incredibly busy year, in that a year ago you actually didn't even exist. And yet here you are, not 12 months later, and you're sitting on over 3 million ounces of gold in a very desirable jurisdiction, sort of heading towards an economic study on an asset. It's all happened really quickly. So why don't we just take a step back and explain how on earth did you end up with this asset? And then we can talk a little bit about sort of what value it might have and where you're going with it.
Sure. Well, it's a little bit of a story there. As you know, with Integra Gold, we were able to sell that asset for just under $600 million a little over a year ago now. And before we actually even sold the asset, our VP of Exploration, Max Baker, who's considered a specialist in low sulfidation epithermal style deposits that we have with Delamar, he was hired by Kinross to put a sales document together, review all the old historic data from the 20 plus years of open pit production that happened there. So his first recommendation to the team when he met with their geologist was, I recommend that you don't sell the asset. You've probably left, maybe 3-4 million ounces of gold at surface that you would have kept mining had prices not forced them to shut down in the late 90s when gold was sub 300. So their geologist kind of sort of agreed with them, but I guess corporately they'd made up their mind to sort of shed the asset. So his first call was to our president and CEO, George Salamis. They used to work together on a previous mining deal about 8 or 10 years ago. And he said, you guys are on the chopping block with your current asset in Val d'Or. You should be taking a look at this. It's going to be up for a bidding process in the summer. So that's kind of how we first heard about it, and then from there we were able to outbid some other groups in Vancouver that were also interested in acquiring the asset, and able to step out right away with a resource that MDA put together for us between Delamar and Florida Mountain, totaling about 3.5 million ounces of gold equivalent in the inferred category.
I mean, and this is so interesting. I have been talking a little bit lately about unlocking assets that are hidden in major mining companies, and that's sort of a unique thing that happens at this time in the cycle. A long bear market, corporates really tighten their belts and shed assets and try and figure out how they can streamline operations, and so assets become available. And like you say, corporate focus sometimes is so focused that they don't necessarily see value, and maybe it was never a fit for Kinross. But wow, is it ever a fit for Integra? So now you have 3 million ounces of gold at surface that's likely heap leachable. You're working on the metallurgy for that.
Correct, yeah.
And, looks to me like it's going to parlay into a fairly good mine plan, sort of toot sweet.
Yeah, it's funny. I mean, we've been able to accomplish a lot just in the first sort of 11 months. We're not quite at it'll be a year and about a month from now that we've had it. Mm-hmm. And yeah, we're going to be stepping into, as you mentioned a minute ago, metallurgical testing. We know that definitely some of it's going to be heap leach compatible. For sure, 100% will be mill compatible. Sure. But at the end of the day, we want to test that so we can operate on that lower cutoff and have more ounces. Obviously, a cheaper method to produce that. So those results will probably start coming out in November. Mm-hmm. All the labs down in Nevada were fairly backed up as far as getting assays back for companies. So we've been waiting quite a while. We're just wrapping up 20,000 meters of drilling currently. We've only put out 4 sets of drill results thus far. So we should start to see a continuous flow every hopefully 2 to 3 weeks with drill results on low grade and high grade targets as well. And that'll bring us up to a resource update early in Q1. Right. And then from the low grade bulk tonnage perspective, that's part of the story is going to move into the development stage as we move into next year, right, as we've got our first economic study and a PEA plan we're targeting June for that. Gotcha. And then meanwhile, we're also waiting for some targets that that are high grade that we've been testing, and those results might be as soon as a week or 2 from now. So ideally, when you look at this, there's some good optionality available for shareholders with a team that's got a proven track record of being able to aggressively drill, go to the capital markets and raise money and aggressively market this story. And we've been able to prove that we can do that in a good market or a bad market. So we're moving forward, and I think the high grade would just potentially be icing on the cake if we're able to find enough of it to hang together. We know it's there there's approximately 2,600 drill holes between Florida Mountain and Delamar, and whenever Kinross was drilling very shallow, averaging 60-70 meters deep underneath the open pits, they were finding high grade there. But at the time, They had $0 for exploration.
Right.
Gold was sub $300, and they were struggling just to keep that mill full at the time, so that was their focus. So we're just in the process of trying to identify and test more high-grade targets.
I mean, the exploration side of this is super interesting. You're having really good success at Delamar, moving down into the Sullivan Gulch area. You're sort of doing fences of holes, and every time you move 100 meters and return 100, 200 meters of mineralized material that's, you know, open pit amenable, looks like to me. I mean, you're growing this resource significantly, adding 200,000 ounces with each fence of holes. I mean, that's ballparking, obviously, but I mean, that's working really well. So while the high grade was super exciting to me when I was visiting the project, and that history of miners pulling 1 ounce material is really enticing, this low grade is also becoming incredibly valuable.
It is. I mean, I think it's something that we can definitely hang our hat on should we not have success with the high grade. But yeah, so we're pretty excited to keep drilling and return, you know, more results to the market and keep people paying close attention to Integra as we move towards the development stage.
Yeah. And keep both sides of those stories going, the low grade, the growing low grade, and like, let's test these high grade targets that are starting to look more and more robust, shall we say.
Exactly, yeah. I mean, when you look at Sullivan Gulch, exactly as you said, we continue to step out 100, 150 meters at a time. And one of the key things to note is that the average resource, the average grade of the resource is 0.7 grams per ton, gold equivalent. So what we've been hitting in most cases is 2, sometimes 3 times that grade, as you alluded to, in 100 to 200 meter sort of widths. So we're pretty excited about it, for sure.
Well, it's been a busy year, and you're getting a lot done, and it doesn't look like the pace is set to ease up. So thanks, congrats on all the work, and I look forward to keeping up with the story over the next however long it continues going.
Great, thanks very much, Gwen.
Thanks.
Thank you.